This is CBC Here and Now.
The winds are finally going to ease as we head into the weekend.
Well, rain certainly isn't dampening the spirits of striking Dominion workers, and you can tell still support from people honking. They've blocked off the distribution centre. Why? That story coming up.
Lawyers are calling on the provincial government to settle a lawsuit launched by former students of training schools in the 70s and 80s.
There have been multiple judicial inquiries, all of which have found the government to be lacking in its care of children.
Coming up on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Peter Cowan.
A major search is underway for a missing young man from this province who is living in British Columbia. 25-year-old Jordan Natterer was last seen Saturday near Manning Provincial Park. Now, he told the family he was going for an overnight hike, but friends became worried when he didn't show up to Thanksgiving dinner on Monday. Natterer's parents have both flown out to help with the search. His sister, who's in St. John's, says the family is confident that Jordan will be found.
Jordan's also a really smart guy. He got his graduate studies in electrical engineering at UBC. He just graduated from that in June. And so he's a really smart guy. He's a pretty experienced hiker. We know he will be able to figure out a way to make it this long. And we're confident between Jordan and the search and rescue teams and the amount of people that are supporting us that we'll be able to find him.
There is a major search effort underway for Natterer, and his sister shares what she wants to tell him when they find him a little later in the show. While PC leader Ches Crosby calls Wally Rich's death while in the provincial government's care yet another tragedy. As Heather Gillis reported last night on Here and Now, the 15-year-old took his own life while in a group home in May. Crosby says 4 vacancies in the province's Supreme Court are delaying justice and an inquiry into Inuit children in care. While it's the federal government's job to appoint the judges, he's calling on the Premier to use his relationship with Ottawa to move that process along. The Justice Department says it provided a list of names to be considered last year, but due to the federal election and COVID-19, the process has been delayed. Crosby believes it would only take weeks or months to appoint new judges, which would ultimately get the inquiry moving.
So now they're looking afield into other provinces to get somebody with the right qualifications to do the inquiry. Why does it have anything to do with the responsibility of Premier Furey and the Liberal government? It's because Premier Furey talks, he tells us, to the federal government every day. It's the federal government that makes these particular appointments. So maybe Premier Furey ought to put on his checklist one of these days the appointment of those 4 vacancies so that we can get on with normal business and people can have their family law cases heard and the backlog can be cleaned up as well as we can do the inquiry.
More than 70 people say they were abused at provincial schools in Whitburn, Pleasantville, and St. John's. Lawyers believe there are even more. Allegations outlined in a class action lawsuit say the abuse happened in the 1970s and 80s. As former students start passing away, lawyers are pushing to bypass a trial. Here now Mark Quinn explains.
The entire program was negligent and did not care properly for children and really turned a blind eye to the abuse that was happening.
The class actions lawyers say the province's failure to care for training school students is undeniable. These schools housed orphaned children and young offenders. Lynn Moore says it's clear that students were repeatedly, physically and sexually abused at the schools.
The evidence in that regard is just overwhelming. They were abused. They were badly abused, and they suffered then and they're suffering now.
Included in the court documents is this affidavit from former Director of Youth Corrections, Sharon Callahan. Callahan supports the claim that there was abuse at the schools, saying, "During a visit to the boys' training school at Whitburn in 1983, I observed blood on the walls, beds, and floors." She also said important information about past abuses at the schools was kept from her. Critical information about child sexual abuse in the training schools was withheld from me, said Callahan. She was not told that 2 men were convicted of sexually abusing children in the schools in the 1950s and the 1970s. But even without that knowledge, Callahan concluded The training schools were inhumane places to house children. I was not surprised by these allegations of abuse. I was expecting them. The class action was certified more than a year ago. The provincial government filed a statement of defense denying liability last January. Lawyers for the students want to avoid a long trial. So this fall, they filed an application asking a judge to rule that there's enough evidence to rule in their favor without a full trial.
We've had 3 people who we've identified as being class members who have died. The delays in getting this brought on is really very tragic. We feel that there really is no defense for government here. We know that there's been change in leadership at the highest levels in our province, and we're really hopeful that that change in leadership will see a change in the litigation strategy in this case, which has been to date delay and denial.
The case is due back in court later in December. Lawyers say if the class action is successful, they expect the former students will be awarded tens of millions of dollars. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
It's a much warmer start than it has been for the past couple of days, certainly in the east. Taking a look at the temperature this morning, 10 degrees in St. John's. Similar temperatures pretty much across the board. A little cooler up through Happy Valley Goose Bay, sitting around 5 degrees this morning. But temperatures rebounded beautifully again today. Much warmer into the afternoon. 16 degrees for St. John's. Even St. Anthony reaching those double digits. Nain as well. 10 degrees was your afternoon high. The winds, though, were breezy. Certainly this morning, seeing gusts anywhere from 60 to as much as 80 kilometers per hour in some of those exposed areas. And that's because a cold front moved through. In behind that, we saw plenty of clearing skies. Now that cold front's going to continue to track a little bit further east as we head through the night tonight, and high pressure is going to move in, and that's going to keep things calm. We'll have all those details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, there's one new case of COVID-19 in the province today. It's in the Western Health region. It's a man between 40 and 49 years old. He's in the same extended household bubble as the previous cases announced in the Western region. The health department says there's no risk of community spread because the man was isolating through his infectious period. Well, there are now 9 active cases in the province, something that has a care home in Lewisport closing its doors to visitors. Pleasant View Manor isn't letting residents have their friends and family over for now. Central Health says the home doesn't have to do that. Only one of the province's active cases is in the same health authority as that facility. Pleasant View's owner says people are happy with their decision.
The federal government says tens of thousands of seniors are at risk of losing benefits because they haven't filed their taxes yet. Ottawa is asking people to submit their returns as soon as possible so that their guaranteed income supplement payments aren't cut off in January. And according to the federal government, an estimated 63,000 seniors are at risk of losing those payments. Well, the local businessman who is interested in buying Mile 1 says he's disturbed by media reports about the internal workings at the sports centre. The Telegram reported today that the St. John's Sports and Entertainment CEO's 12% bonus was calculated and awarded without verifiable criteria. Dean McDonald says it's more evidence of serious problems at the money-losing operation.
That's very frustrating. You have in the report and the information I read is they haven't met budget in 6 or 7 years, continue to go back and ask for a greater subsidy. They've had money stolen in the building. So clearly there's serious operational issues. In fact, the KPMG report point that out, and yet a bonus is given to the CEO with no criteria. Like, it's astounding. I think we all wish we worked at organizations that were so generous.
Fairly loud traffic there. Apologies for that. Now, Jamie Korab, the city councillor who chairs St. John's Sports and Entertainment, tells CBC News that changes have been made to how the CEO's bonus will be calculated in the future. And he points out the current CEO has wanted clear bonus criteria to be in place for quite some time now. Well, Sheshe came together this week for a vigil in remembrance of Joyce Echequan. She's the 37-year-old First Nations woman who died last month in a hospital in Quebec shortly after she posted video of medical staff insulting her on Facebook. Echequan's story made national headlines and resonated with the Innu in Sheshe.
It was important for us because we feel connected. We feel connected with the community of Manawan and what the lady Joyce Echequan went through. We had, I would say, about 50 to 60. I think people came there for different reasons, to support the family and say prayers for Joyce and her children and her community. And people have their own lived experiences here in our community. I didn't listen to the whole video, but the screaming is still stuck in my mind. A couple of years ago, we had a situation here where a woman from my community died at the hospital, and she had made a phone call to her daughter saying that she wasn't feeling well at all and wanted her to come. And that reminded me of that situation, and where the young girl left work to go to be with her mother in the early morning, and at the door they wouldn't let her in. And later on in the morning, her mom passed away. And that's kind of the thing that popped into my mind that was most recent. We can advocate more for our community and for what they're going through and what those experiences have been or that are still created. We can sit with the hospital, the LGH now, and say, look, things have got to change. People can't be coming in and out and at certain times and not be seen and not be taken seriously for the concerns that they do come with. People wanted the same treatment as everybody else. And sometimes that in our community, people don't feel that. So we step up to advocate for our communities, to making sure that the healthcare hears what those concerns are.
Well, now, connected with this story, Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller is moving forward with a meeting tomorrow to address racism in Canada's healthcare system following Joyce Echequan's death. Now, the meeting also comes as the number of COVID cases rise in First Nations communities in other parts of Canada, and health authorities need people to trust them.
Tomorrow, Carolyn Bennett and I, along with other ministers, will meet with Indigenous representatives and health professionals, representatives of Canadian health associations and representatives from provinces and territories to start the work to eliminate the systemic racism experienced by First Nations, Inuit, and Métis in Canada's healthcare system.
We want to return now to our coverage of the oil industry and how offshore service providers are being battered by the downturn. Last night, we took you inside the operations at Cougar Helicopters, where a shrinking offshore industry is forcing the grounding of some aircraft and putting some highly skilled air crews and technicians out of work. While tonight we shine a spotlight on the ships that deliver cargo to the oil fields. Terry Roberts continues our series tonight.
It's loading day at the offshore marine base in St. John's. Long tubes of oil well casing, destined for the Hebron oil platform, are being loaded onto the Atlantic Griffin. This futuristic-looking vessel is one of a small fleet of offshore supply ships operated by Atlantic Towing. They service the 4 producing fields in the offshore and drill rigs exploring for more. This type of activity is labor-intensive, supporting numerous jobs on shore and at sea, carrying everything from a can of drink and fresh linens to pieces of equipment weighing more than 2 tractor trailers.
Everything that goes offshore comes through here.
As long as there's been an offshore oil industry, this base has been a jumping-off point. And when business is booming, workers here are the first to know. The reverse is also true.
The industry has taken a hit, and I guess we're a bellwether of that industry.
It was once common to record 45 or more vessel departures in a single month from this base. But the global pandemic and the scheduled end of some activity has ravaged this business. In September, down to less than 30 departures, and the fleet is shrinking.
If we were here having this chat a year ago, there'd be 17 or 18 vessels in circulation, supporting offshore, going through these docks. Today we're down to around 9. So, and when Equinor finishes drilling, in a couple of months, there'll be 3 more gone. So 6 vessels versus 17, 18. So that's a huge impact on the economy that people just would not believe.
Each vessel has 2 crews of 14, But there's now a serious oversupply of these ships, forcing companies like Atlantic Towing to send vessels to places like the North Sea or tie up indefinitely. Have you seen similar dips like this before?
I have never seen anything like this. We've been, since I started this in '99, I mean, I've basically been part of managing a growth industry. And, you know, there's been a few little dips here and there, but all planned, all new because of project timelines and whatnot. But we've never had to deal with this.
This slump has sent shockwaves throughout the vast supply chain.
The stevedore activity is down 20% in their hours. So, you know, it impacts everybody. And not only just
it's enough to keep people like Jeff Cunningham awake at night, knowing that the longer this slide continues, the harder it will be to rebound. But he's an optimist.
I've always assumed that things would come around. I mean, we assume the COVID is going to get conquered someday, and we assume that, you know, oil is still going to be demanded. And, you know, certainly Newfoundland and Labrador is a great place to do business if you're in the oil industry. But I fear that, you know, we need to figure out a way to turn this around quicker, sooner rather than later.
Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
A 58-year-old man from Northern Arm is facing charges for allegedly importing illegal weed. RCMP seized 5 pounds of marijuana and 2 kilograms of hashish, as well as $20,000 cash from a home in the community. Police worked with the Liquor Corporation and Canada Post inspectors on the bust. The man was charged on Tuesday and is expected in court in January.
A lot of action here in Donovan's Industrial Park in Mount Pearl because Dominion strikers have taken their fight here outside the Dominion Distribution Center. Chris McDonald is a lead negotiator. Chris, what's going on here?
Well, we've moved a number of folks from our picket lines around the St. John's area here to the Loblaws warehouse. We've got 100 members here, and we're sending a strong message to Loblaws. We're ready to get back to the bargaining table, and we've been on strike for 8 weeks. Our members have been on strike for 8 weeks.
Now, I see the cars behind you and obviously some trucks back there in the Loblaws line. Is this legal? Are you allowed to do this?
Well, the fact of the matter is that I don't know that it should be legal for them to pay 53% of their 1,400 members minimum wage. I don't know that it should be legal for them to pretend somebody's part-time when they're full-time. The fact is the injunction doesn't apply to here. We're here to get Loblaws' attention, and frankly, they've got some avenues available for them to deal with this.
So let me try that again. Is this legal?
Well, you know what? Our injunction does not apply here. So as far as I'm concerned, secondary pickets are legal, and this is legal.
Okay, but to an objective observer, you're increasing the pressure tactic here, right?
Absolutely we are.
And what do you hope? Do you think this is actually going to change Loblaws' mind?
You know what? Standing at the picket line in our 11 locations so far for 8 weeks hasn't changed Loblaws, hasn't got them back to the table with one single nickel. And frankly, ultimately, this is about getting back to the bargaining table. I'm ready to leave here today and go back to the bargaining table. I hope they will be too.
Okay, now as a senior person with the union, you came here from the mainland, came from Ottawa, you had to self-isolate, right?
I did, that's right.
So is this an indication then that, you know, a heavy hitter from the union is going to be sticking around here for a while? Because you were 2 weeks in Pooch Cove, is that?
That's right. I was 2 weeks in Pooch Cove doing my self-isolation. I came here 2.5 weeks ago. I've been out since Sunday, and you know, frankly, I'm here to get a deal. I'm here to encourage our members to continue to fight, to try to stand up to Loblaws, and it's important that somebody from our national office or from our president's office be here to support them. People in Newfoundland understand that it's not fair what's been happening to these members. Well, I don't get one single sense that every car that's passing here is honking in support of these members. I think if you want to find out if the public is in support, you can look at what's happening here. We don't get the same sense that people are losing support. They understand the frustration of being on the picket line for 8 weeks.
Now, apparently there's been a development in Atlantic Canada with other Dominion workers. Can you let me know about that?
Yeah, we have our Loblaws warehouse in Atlantic Canada, in Moncton, New Brunswick, actually. Those members have now taken a strike vote. We're escalating this towards a strike at that location if we can't get a fair deal for those workers and a fair deal for these workers. The fact is our union is across the country, and this just because these workers are on strike right now, those workers are also in a difficult position. They've taken a strike vote. They're prepared to strike as well. That will only add to the pressure on Loblaws. We need to get back to the bargaining table and find these workers a fair deal.
All right, Chris, I have a feeling we'll be talking again. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming down.
In other news, imagine going to a garage sale, picking up an old roll of undeveloped film, and finding that the pictures inside are of music legend Johnny Cash. Well, that happened recently in Millertown. And the story gets better. Back in the 1960s, Cash famously came to the province on a hunting trip and played shows along the way as well. The man who found these forgotten photos recently tracked down another man who appreciates them, the son of Cash's former manager. He planned the hunting trip and joined Cash on the journey. Well, Here and Now spoke with Jonathan Hollis about his father's trip with the Man in Black.
When I see these photos of Johnny standing over a moose, he never looked better in his life. At 29, deep in the forests of Newfoundland, he was young, handsome, he had a movie star quality, and it held so much promise for the future. Hi, my name is Jonathan Holliff, and I'm the son of Johnny Cash's former manager. My father and Johnny had just wrapped a 10-city tour of Ontario. They had been flirting with the idea that Saul would become his manager. And I believe my dad, hoping to impress Cash, pitched him on a hunting and tour, a hunting trip and tour of Newfoundland. Color photos of the trip had been online for a couple of years and are quite popular. But I was contacted for the first time roughly 2 months ago by a fellow named Glenn Chator, who is a collector in Newfoundland, and came across negatives. I believe it was at a garage sale, 35 black and white shots. It was very exciting to receive these photographs. I'd never seen photographs of Johnny Cash hunting in this manner, but also there are shots of concerts where he's performing from what appears to be a wrestling ring. Johnny performed from some pretty unusual places, but I had never seen anything quite like that. I really appreciate the fact that Newfoundlanders are excited about this story and the local flavor, and I can relate. I was born and raised in London, Ontario. Johnny proposed to June Carter in 1968 in my hometown. I have seen many photographs of my father and Johnny Cash together, but these represent the earliest ever taken, and the setting is fascinating. It almost looks like the set of a TV Western in the 1950s. Because they involve the moose hunt, it really is a snapshot in time, and while it's of great interest to Newfoundlanders, it's also of great interest to music historians.
I'm Jane Adey, host of the broadcast. Coming up, I'm going to take you underwater and up close to the remnants of a wartime shipwreck.
A little bit gray out there still, certainly here in the east. Other places saw plenty of sunshine today. Now, is that going to continue? I'll have the details coming up.
This weather forecast is brought to you by Newfoundland and Labrador Tourism. Take the time to explore this fall. Learn more at stayhomeyear.ca.
Welcome back to Here and Now. Ashley, I just want to point out that the week that I've been hosting here, the weather has been warm and much nicer than normal. I don't want to take credit or anything, just saying.
Maybe it is. It's all you, isn't it?
If it turns badly, it's not my fault.
Okay, that's how I feel. When it turns bad, it's never my fault. Yeah, it's been beautiful, warm-wise for sure. I mean, we did see some rain today, but other parts of the province, it's been beautiful once we saw that cold front push through. Let's take a look at the current conditions, or at least a little bit earlier in Port Saunders there. You can see beautiful blue sky there, about 10 degrees, light winds, and temperatures across the board are actually sitting in those teens, still 15 degrees in St. John's. 16 in Terra Nova, and then we've got single-digit temperatures up through Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 9 degrees right now, and 6 in Lab City. So that cold front pushed through earlier today, seeing some lingering cloud cover in the east, some more cloud cover moving in for parts of Labrador as well, but that area of high pressure is going to dominate over at least the next 24 hours, certainly for the island. Once that cold front sweeps through, we are going to see a little bit of a wind shift. So that means we'll probably see the drizzle and the cloud cover continue through most of the afternoon into tomorrow, certainly through the night tonight, but the rest of the province will see that clearing skies into the overnight. So here's where we'll be sitting. We're going to hang on to the warmer temperatures though, only going down to 10 degrees for St. John's. The winds will ease finally, 5 degrees in Corner Brook. Those lower lying areas again, likely hovering around the 0-degree mark, with temperatures into the single digits up through Labrador as well. But that rain will move right back in for you in Lab West. Your winds are going to pick up as well. You're looking at gusts out of the south, anywhere from 30 to as much as 50 kilometers per hour through the overnight tonight. And as we head through the day tomorrow, that ridge of high pressure will dominate. But again, those winds will be a little bit more onshore in the east. So we'll probably see some drizzle, certainly some cloud cover kicking around through most of the day. And then we'll see that shower activity as well up through areas in Lab West, staying there for the most part. The rest of the big land looks like it'll be actually fairly nice, at least until we head into the evening hours. We'll see that potential for showers move in along the south and then for the northern portion of Labrador as well. Temperatures tomorrow will be mild again, above what we would normally see this time of year. 14 degrees for St. John's, with those winds staying fairly light. More cloud or less cloud cover as you head further west though tomorrow. Grand Falls, Windsor and Gander both sitting around 17 degrees tomorrow, with plenty of sunshine into the afternoon as you head towards the west coast. Even more beautiful, 19 degrees should be the afternoon high in Corner Brook. Those winds will be light again as well, out of the southwest, anywhere from 10 to as much as 15 kilometers per hour. A little cooler along the south coast, reaching high near 12 degrees for Port aux Basques. And then as we head up towards the northern portions of the Big Land, or towards the southern portions of the Big Land rather, we're looking at about 16 degrees. So well above seasonal. However, your winds will be a little bit more brisk. You're looking at 20 to 40 kilometer per hour winds out of the south. 16 degrees in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, with plenty of sunshine. And then we've got about 8 degrees for Lab City, but you'll see those showers work their way and then again into Nain later on in the afternoon. Once we get through to Saturday, again, it's looking like we're going to see some of that cloud cover stick around, certainly for the east. It's going to be generally unsettled. Some sunshine will certainly be in play as well. Then the next area of low pressure will move in. And that's going to bring some rain and potentially some snow with it, and then eventually some rain for the island as well through the day on Saturday. Here's where your temperatures will be sitting. So we're going to dip a little bit in the east, so 14 degrees for St. John's. However, going to continue to see those warmer temperatures through central and into the west coast as well. 19 for Corner Brook, 17 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Same thing for Cartwright. Again, this is like 10 to 12 degrees above what you would normally see this time of year. 7 degrees in Nain and 9 in Lab City. And then as we head into Sunday, there is some sunshine in play. However, it is looking like we'll see some showers as well. Temperatures still in those teens, and 11 degrees for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. So they're going to drop a little bit. And then for Lab City, you will see your potential for some flurries, certainly in the morning, clearing skies. And then eventually we'll see that potential for some snow move right back in again. Overnight lows over the next 4 or 5 days, still looking beautiful, is hovering around the 10-degree mark, and temperatures into the teens. By Tuesday, we'll start to see things in the east lighten up a little bit, so we'll see a little bit more sunshine in play, but as through central, a little bit of a dip Saturday night with some sunshine, and then that rain will move back in again. And we're looking at that continuing through Monday and Tuesday with temperatures in the teens. Similar forecast for western Newfoundland. However, you're going to hang on to that sunshine a little bit longer, and then it'll start to get a little bit gray as we head into the weekend. 16, 17 degrees and overnight lows into the single digits. And then up through Labrador, eastern Labrador, sunshine and nice, beautiful above seasonal temperatures, and then into the single digits for Lab West. Wanted to share this beautiful shot. Look at this, lovely afternoon. Wayne shared this one with us in Whitburn. Thank you so much. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
A man from this province is missing in British Columbia. Jordan Natterer went for a hike, and it's now been 5 days since he's been seen. Julia Natterer is his sister, and she's joining us from St. John's to tell us about it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So when did you first realize that Jordan was missing?
So I knew he was going on a hike over the weekend. Since every week or so we FaceTime, he told me on Friday night that he would be going for an overnight hike in the mountains. And when he didn't show up to Thanksgiving dinner on Monday, his friends knew something was wrong. So I woke up on Tuesday morning to my mom saying, "Julia, there's a police officer in British Columbia on the phone. They need to talk to you. Jordan's gone missing."
So what's the search been like since then?
It's been a lot. It's been hard to piece together things because I'm in a group chat with all of Jordan's friends who are there now with the search and rescue teams, and so they've been giving me updates, but it's hard to follow along since there's so much going on. So today they're sending out 7 different search and rescue teams in different areas of Manning Park. They have 4 helicopters that they're sending up as well. They have dogs there as well and ATVs, I think, with more people on them looking for him. My dad is there with some of Jordan's friends helping out the search and rescue teams, and my mom flew out this morning. So we're really confident we'll find him. It's just hard being in St. John's on the other side of the country and trying to piece together what's happening constantly in British Columbia while I'm also trying to do schoolwork and stuff like that since I'm in the middle of exams. So it's been hard, and it's been a pretty extensive game of catch up, but hopefully it'll all be worth it and we'll find him really soon.
You said you're pretty confident that you're going to find him okay. Why do you say that?
Yeah. The search and rescue teams in British Columbia are some of the best in the country. This happens a lot in British Columbia since their mountains there are so vast and they have a lot of forests and hiking there. This happens a lot, and search and rescue teams are out a lot doing things like this. So I'm confident that they'll find him. But Jordan's also a really smart guy. He got his graduate studies in electrical engineering at UBC. He just graduated from that in June. And so he's a really smart guy. He's a pretty experienced hiker. We know he will be able to figure out a way to make it this long. And we're confident between Jordan and the search and rescue teams and the amount of people that are supporting us that we'll be able to find him.
Well, good luck, and thank you very much for speaking with me.
Thank you.
Well, joining me now to discuss how online teaching is working out at Memorial University is MUN's Provost and Vice President Academic, Mark Abrahams. So Dr. Abrahams, how prepared was the university and its faculty to move such a vast amount of teaching online?
Well, I mean, like every university, we were struggling, but we were more prepared for the fall than we were for the spring. So we worked tirelessly over the summer to get ready for the fall term.
Now, as I'm sure you're well aware, several hundred students have signed a petition. They've got a number of concerns. And a big one is about just the sheer number of hours per day that they have to spend online, as you can imagine, with the courses, the exams, the quizzes, the group work. It turns into hours and hours, not just during the week, but on weekends as well. Did MUN actually calculate just how much online would mean students spending time in front of a computer all day?
I have to admit we haven't sat down and added it all up, but we did anticipate it would be significant demand on the students. Now you have to understand this is brand new for Memorial University. We don't have a playbook for this, so we're learning as we go.
Any sense that this might be taking a toll on people's mental health? I mean, I know, and you probably know, we spend enough time in front of computers already, but if you've got, let's say a student has 5 or 6 courses in certain programs, I mean, that's going to translate into a lot of sitting down on your keister. It's going to take a toll, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's going to take a toll. We're very aware of that. We've been reaching out to students through our Student Wellness and Counseling Center and trying to provide supports to students in addition to simply providing teaching material to them.
Were the professors and faculty adequately prepared for this kind of teaching on their side, the delivery of it?
We hoped they were. We certainly increased our capacity in teaching technology to provide those supports to faculty. So any faculty that requested support, we provided that support to those faculty.
Is there any sense, given that, given our relatively low prevalence of the virus, that maybe there's some room to open this up a bit? Perhaps go to a hybrid system of maybe 50-50, some classes and some online, as opposed to so much online?
There's no playbook for this, and we're developing it as we go. So in fact, we are moving some programs to a hybrid mode. So the School of Music, for example, will be in a hybrid mode in the winter term. And certainly I'm working with deans in terms of what sorts of on-campus experiences can we provide to students, which is beyond what we're doing with a remote delivery.
So you think that students are still getting their money's worth? Because I've spoken to some students and they fear that, in the future, employers are going to say, oh, they were part of that COVID cohort. They didn't get the same kind of education that people did because of the way universities responded. You kind of look down the road. Are there any concerns or anything that MUN can do to address, I don't know, maybe even the stigma that's going to be attached to having been a student who graduated from a university that wasn't really a fully online integrated university?
Well, right now, I think almost every university in the world is more or less working in a very similar mode to the way Memorial University is operating. What we're really focusing on is making sure that we don't have any interruption in our academic programs. So many of the universities that have tried to go face-to-face have had to suddenly pivot when they've had an outbreak of COVID. You have to remember, 100% of the population is susceptible to this virus. So what we want to do is be able to take advantage of facilities on campus, but not simultaneously expose the population to undue risk.
Professor Abrahams, I know that there are no easy answers to this. I appreciate your frankness, and let's look forward to a day when the exciting life at campus at MUN is back to normal. Thanks so much for your time.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
There are lots of fascinating things to see under the ocean around our shores, including thousands of shipwrecks, some of them completely unexplored. Host of the broadcast, Jane Adey, caught up with the president of the province's Shipwreck Preservation Society to find out about a couple of wrecks, their stories, and some new photos from the deep.
Fort Amherst's lighthouse is well known to locals, but most people don't know there's a shipwreck just beneath those jagged rocks. Neil Burgess is president of the Shipwreck Preservation Society. He's keen for more people to learn about our maritime disasters.
In 1933, this large steel cargo ship was bringing salt over from Spain. And when the ship was approaching the entrance to the Narrows, a schooner ran across in front of it, and he had to veer over to the side, and the ship ran aground on a rock just under the lighthouse.
Burgess has never been diving on that particular wreck, but a few weeks ago, with the help of Ocean Quest Tours, Neil Burgess crossed a shipwreck off his list that he's always wanted to see, the USS Pollux in Placentia Bay.
Most people in Newfoundland know the story of the Pollocks and Truxton. They ran aground in a really fierce February storm back in the Second World War in 1942. There was almost 400 men on those ships, and more than half of them died that night. Divers had been on those wrecks 40 years ago, but the current diving community had kind of lost track of where exactly they were. I'd done a bit of research and found some eyewitness sketch maps from U.S. Navy personnel back in 42, and that indicated where the ship had run into the cliffs at Lawn Head. And so we dove on that location, and sure enough, that's where the wreckage was.
So knowing the history of that wreck, just tell me what it was like to actually be underwater near that. What was going through your mind?
It's hard to describe the mixed feelings you have diving on a shipwreck where you know over 100 men have lost their lives. It's very sobering, but it's exploring. And when you actually find the shipwreck, we were doing fist pumps underwater, so excited that we'd found it. And then you start looking around, and there were guns from the deck guns of the ship were lying on the bottom, and it's like somebody dumped the contents of a hardware store on the bottom. There were hundreds of padlocks and bolts and nuts and cutlery and all kinds of machinery, wires and bits and pieces. And then there were huge pieces of machinery, like the propeller shafts were hundreds of feet long in those ships, great big propeller shafts that are this big around, made of steel. And they were kind of bent and twisted on the bottom, broken apart by that wave action. There's no clothing left on this one. There's no human remains visible. So we didn't see anything like dog tags or anything like that would really bring you up short. We were dealing with about 1.5 meters of swell that day. So when we're diving, it's like the waves are pulling you back and forth. And it was only a hint of what it must have been like back in February of 42. The eyewitnesses said the waves were about 30 feet high, and it's a cliff. And just thinking of trying to get ashore and not being pounded to a pulp against the rocks. And it was February, and it was freezing cold, and it was in the middle of a snowstorm. I'm actually amazed at how anybody survived that spot.
Burgess and friends collect photos on their dives to surface the stories for those who can't venture below.
It's really humbling for me. It really makes me feel good to be able to share pictures underwater with non-divers who'd never get to see it. Because it gives you a window into the story. It's something physical that you can see in front of your eyes that you don't get from the cliffs out there. They're important events that we need to remember, and through the Shipwreck Preservation Society, we hope to share and promote awareness of those shipwrecks as part of our history of the province.
Fascinating underwater adventures await on the Society's Facebook page. Jane 80, CBC News, St. John's.
You just get this weird feeling in here. It was like somebody's watching it.
There was a white, object in the shape of a person that moved across the window.
Creepy tales of the unexplained.
I remember walking home and I thought I heard, a crack of a whip, and I said, it can't be, is that really? And then I heard it again, and I just started running.
The haunting of. Spooky stories from across the province, Thursdays in October on Here and Now.
Welcome back. Well, October is a time when the weather gets a little colder, color turns to gray, darkness sets in. Perfect setting and time for a ghost story. And starting tonight and every Thursday, we're going to bring you The Haunting Of. It's a selection of ghost stories from right across the province. And tonight, we head to the Duke of Duckworth and the story of a mischievous phantom named Fred.
I have felt creeped out here lots of times. Anything goes wrong, suspicious, curious, that type of way, we always ask Fred. It first started when we first opened in 1987. And there's been odd things happen over the years. This used to be the White's clothing factory, and the fellow that owned it was called Sam White, or one of his sons or something like that, hung himself in this part of the building. Can you prove it? Who knows? That's just stuff that's been told us over the years. There was a bartender, Steve, saw a face in the wall here one night. So that's why that mirror is where it is, because that's where he saw the face. He's a little bit suspicious on what he was probably doing extracurricular at the time, but it was back there on the wall. He never described it much. I don't think he ever worked here again after it, actually. We have a couple of people that won't work here because of it. Cleaners and stuff like that don't like being here at all. They just get this weird feeling in here and strange. It's always like somebody's watching you or something like that. The TV was the one that freaked me out, and this is a long time ago. I turned off the TV, went downstairs, came up, TV's back on. I remember even the next day going, I said, how could that be possible? And someone said, well, this could have been somebody turned on a TV in another house, same remote. And I said, yeah, who lives down here? Fred is the Duke ghost. We've always called him Fred. Most bartenders leave here at the end of the night to say, good night, Fred. Usually the weird feelings and just little things that throw you off. I'm sure I closed that door and you come back and the door's open. How's that even possible? Right? You know, I must have left it open. He likes to be noticed. When I came in, the boy said, did you put a cracked off pool stick or something on the floor before you left? Because just after I left, I said, no, I don't go around laying pieces of wood on the floor. And I said, no, it was really weird and stuff. So I went down and I looked it on the camera. It just kind of pokes out, falls down, and then rolls around, which is the freaky part for me, where it starts rolling. Of course, you could explain it, that was some vibrations or something like that, or well, it wasn't a very busy time, there wasn't much happening. It's just a time of year everybody kind of gets freaked out by that sort of stuff. So, but it's a great video to watch.
A First Nations chief involved in the Nova Scotia lobster dispute is calling the RCMP useless. Mike Sack is referring to incidents Tuesday night when commercial fishermen raided 2 lobster storage facilities. They apparently dumped hundreds of lobster on the ground, set a van on fire, and intimidated Indigenous leaders and fishermen. Both the chief and the federal government are denouncing the violence.
My belief is that everything could have been a lot safer if the DFO acted in the first place, and some of those commercial fishermen were held accountable and charged for their actions. They're all walking around believing that they can do whatever they want and get away with it and take the law into their own hands. And I'm starting to believe that's true.
These unacceptable acts of violence, including the assault of Chief Sack, threats and intimidation, some racist in nature, cannot and will not fetter the right of the Mi'kmaq people to pursue a moderate livelihood as affirmed close to 25 years ago in the Marshall decision.
So far, there have been no arrests, and Chief Sack says he's pursuing charges against the people involved in Tuesday's incident.
Well, 36 years after the murder of a 9-year-old Ontario schoolgirl, police have identified the man that they believe was responsible.
Calvin Hoover of Toronto, Ontario, was 28 years old in 1984. He was known to the Jessup family at the time of Christine's disappearance. He died in 2015.
Sources say he died by suicide, and police say when they spoke with Christine Jessup's father today, he was sickened by the news. The young girl vanished one day after school in 1984. Her body was found 3 months later. A neighbor was wrongfully convicted of the crime and sent to prison, and he was released when DNA evidence cleared his name. That same evidence was used to identify the genealogy of the suspect, ultimately making the match to Hoover.
your street, ooh, 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 on your street, ooh, 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 on your street.
I live in St. John's, and I'm 7 years old. I'm French, Newfoundlandese, and proud to be. My sisters and I want to present you my apple tree. What we like of it is that in spring it blooms some flowers, and in the fall, when it's almost Halloween, of course, we like to take some leaves that's on the ground, and we like climbing on them and get some apples. Hi, this was Madeline Hurley for CBC News.
Thank you, Madeline, and to your apple-loving sisters as well. Yeah. Nice harvest scene.
And thanks to you for joining us tonight. That's all for Here and Now. Have a great evening.
Good night.